Okay, I wanted to do an updated video on how the sheep are doing. So we have learned a lot this learning season for our first lambing season. This guy, all right, so these are our sheep. You can see that they're hair sheep, so this wool or hair is supposed to shed off entirely on its own. And so for some of our sheep, they're having difficulty doing that completely. And this being our first season, we were not sure how much we should intervene as far as that goes. And I know they're not supposed to need to be sheared, but we are very close to getting to the point where we're going to corral them and shear them. I'm going to show you why. So see this mama? So this mama with the pink, she's one of the moms who was kind of acting sick about a week after she gave birth, and we were having like really torrential rainstorms during that time, and then we would get like heat and humidity, and it was the same time that our dog Maisie got some moisture trapped underneath her fur, and she developed a hot spot where she pulled out all of her back hair and down to her tail. So I didn't know that this could happen to sheep. So for any of you that are new to sheep, this was a new one by me, especially with hair sheep. You can see like, so this is Scooter, and she's almost done shedding off her thick coat, but still not, like I would like to see her mostly done at this point. So this mom didn't do that. And she actually had probably the most like hair-like texture to her coat. And so when the vet came out to look at our cow and look at some animals, we had him out and we said, you know, she's sick. We've done everything that we can think of to try to help her. This is her baby right here, and she's still sick. And so he grabbed a hold of her back of her wool. She was pretty thick with the wool, just like these guys are, or the hair, I don't know what you want to call it, but he grabbed a hold of it to be able to examine her. And when he did, basically he gave one tug, and her entire back of her wool from here to her neck just peeled off. And it revealed a very thick layer, or I should say like a half an inch thick layer of maggots, like just like all maggots. She had something called fly strike, which I have heard of happening like with livestock in their back end if they're sick and they have like diarrhea or something. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of people with sheep will dock the tails of wool sheep, is to keep there from being an issue where manure can get back, can get back there and get accumulated and give a place for flies to lay their eggs and hatch. And I recently read that it can happen in wool sheep, but I did not ever know that it could happen in hair sheep. And I imagine that it's because they didn't shed off their coats completely. Interestingly enough, their mothers, that we know where their mothers are from, they did do a pretty good job of shedding off. So there was really no way for us to look and see that this was going to be an issue with them. And we do rotate them daily. And so although they have a structure that rotates with them, it seems like they didn't have enough to rub off all of that wool. And that first year wool was pretty thick. They can kind of keep it for another season. So now we're watching them. So we were like kind of grabbing a hold of them and pulling off any of the loose wool that any of them have. But so the maggots came, and the vet said that she had an upper respiratory infection that probably lowered her immune system. And because it lowered her immune system, she was just more susceptible after lambing anyway to something like this happening. And then the moisture just got in there and the flies went to town. So that was awful. So we've been treating her and watching her and stuff, and making sure that where it's healing, you can see like that one little back flap that's kind of flapping around. That's the last of her dead and decaying skin that has peeled off completely. So it's kind of like a burn victim, I guess, where that whole layer of skin died and then peeled off. And she's doing much better. When she first had this issue, we do try to do as much as we can organically first, but when our animals are really in danger of suffering, we will use other interventions. And so it was so bad, we just grabbed permethrin spray and sprayed her down to make sure that it killed anything that was on there. And then I was able to get in a good product from Synergy Animal Products, and that's more of a natural fly repellent that works. A lot of the natural ones, I don't feel like they work, but this one did. And so we've just been coming out and making sure that she is sprayed down and that there's no flies trying to get at like these little areas that are healing still. There was one spot on her neck that we were really watching, and it actually seems to be healing up quite well. So we're gonna keep an eye on her, and otherwise she seems okay, as long as she has shade and shelter. And we've been just watching her to make sure she's eating with the others, she's staying with the others, she's acting like she's recovering. So this is one of the reasons that we were really selective about the ram that we chose. So this guy is our ram, and although like to somebody who's kind of new, he looks just very similar to the rest of them. You can see that he has shed off all of his coat completely, and there's a number of other things we've noticed since he's been here. So when he came, he was kind of smaller than the other ones, and he was about 6 months younger, and we were not sure if he'd be able to get the job done. And we got him from this great farm. I believe it's called Maplewood Acres. I'll double check that, but they have been breeding for generations sheep who shed off completely. They do a really good job shedding their wool coat, their hair coat, who have really good hoof health, so that you don't have to constantly be trimming their hooves, and his are great. They have excellent fertility. You can see he's very well endowed for a smaller sheep. Just very hardy, excellent parasite resistance. Every single time we've gotten a hold of him and checked him to see if there's any indications of a parasite load or anemia, you would check their inner lower eyelid, and the brighter red and pink it is, the better. The more pale pink and white colored, the more of an indicator that there's a parasite load that's causing anemia and potentially death. He's been really hardy and just a great temperament, great ram. So all the things that we were hoping to breed into our flock. And then also, I know a lot of people talk about the St. Croix sheep, who are great. I've heard great things about, but from what I've heard, sometimes they can have a little bit of a bonier carcass if you're raising them for meat. And so these ones are Katahdin Florida Cracker, and they are really heat tolerant. They do really well in the temperature changes, and so they're just kind of a hardy sheep that needs less intervention, and we really have liked him. He's caught up in size to our girls. He's been great, and he's been in here the whole time that we had the lambing season. He was definitely interested, and I guess I'd say a little protective of the lambs, but not aggressive. Now, I don't know if that would change as he gets older, but he's a little over a year old now, like a year and a month, I believe. And we've been very, very happy with him. I would definitely purchase from them again. And these little sheep are now a month old, and they're doing fantastic. Hey, and we're happy to be breeding these genetics into our flock and be breeding up. So what we'll do is we'll keep all of the ewe lambs that came out of this flock, and then we will continue to breed them. We'll breed him one more time to these mothers, and then in the future we will get another ram to breed his offspring. This is one of the twin ram lambs this guy and this one back here. And they were so tiny when they were born, and they've done a good job catching up to the others. They're almost the same size. They definitely seem like they have a different coat. So that's interesting. And then everybody seems to be doing well. A lot of the little ones develop something called ORF. ORF is a virus that causes like these sores on their face and their mouth, and in and of itself it's just a virus that, although uncomfortable, doesn't seem to be really problematic, but it can potentially cause issues where if they're nursing, they can transfer it to the mother's udder, and then the mother, if she develops sores on her udder, can like kick them off because she's uncomfortable, and they could potentially, like worst case scenario, starve, or she can develop mastitis because she's not nursing. And so thankfully that didn't happen. They just it ran its course, it cleared up, and we marked what part of the pasture that they are in so that we can avoid it in the future. There's nothing really we did to cause it. It's just was one of the many things that happened during our first lambing season. So some of the lambs developed ORF. We had the issue with this sheep with the fly strike. We lost one of the moms due to what we think was pneumonia or a respiratory thing, like what she probably had because of the same weather conditions. And everybody else seems to be doing well, but one of our first babies, Black Betty, she was the one that was rejected from the day she was born, and she lived to be about a month old, like a couple days short of a month old. She went and she recovered from her respiratory infection. She recovered from an eye infection. She was very, very sweet, but she seemed to have kind of a low immune system. And then when we thought she was doing better and recovering, she ended up developing seizures. So she started seizing, and then she would seem like she was doing better and have seizures again. And this happened for a few days, and she ended up dying at the vet's office when they were trying to help her. She had been there for a few days, and they were trying to figure out what was causing it, and they could not conclusively get it under control, and so she ended up having a really bad seizure and dying from that, and that was really sad. But it was definitely not necessarily something we did. It just was something that happened during the first lambing season. And the last thing we found was that this sheep and this one, who have not lambed yet, when the doctor came out, he ultrasounded them and found that they are infertile. So they've been in with the ram the whole time. They have the same minerals, the same forage, the same everything, and they just are not able to get pregnant. So we are probably going to, there were a few things that we could do, and what we've decided is that we're going to process them just to have good, clean meat for our family, because they've never had anything that they should not. They've been on really clean pasture. And then that way we can really have a good sense of, if we were selling meat in the future, what we were offering people and how much we were going to be getting out of each sheep, in order to be able to price them accordingly. So, but most of our lambs this year, it was definitely a heavy ewe year. So we have a number of little ewes, and I think we have 3 rams, the 2 twins, and then this one's a little white ram. And we have one little girl who looks very similar to her dad. Hey, Mama. So she looks a lot like her daddy, and she'll stay with the flock. So yeah, we've learned a lot through the whole time, just to make sure that as they are moving along, that they have plenty of areas to rub off that hair. We're actually going to be moving a structure in here, because we just moved them, where they're able to rub some more. We've been just selectively choosing areas where they have the ability to do that. And you can see, she's half rubbed off. but we really over time want to breed sheep that don't need as much intervention. Now this may be that it was just their first year. We'll see how they do next year with shedding their coats, and if this was just a first year thing. But I'm glad that the babies have the father's genetics, because his is great. He didn't have any issue with shedding his coat at all, and he's been wonderful. So I can't get over how big they've already gotten just in the past month. They've grown really fast. Such a difference from Betty, who is a bottle baby, like maybe half the size of them. Like she just could not keep up with the growth that these ones were showing. And these babies are doing awesome, doing a really great job. So those are some of the, I don't know if I'd say mistakes, but just things we've learned about this past year that can occur with your sheep, and you know, among many other things that we've learned, but those are some things that we just experienced this past month during our first lambing season. So we lost one. We had one who was sick. We lost a bottle baby, and we had two that didn't breed because they were infertile. So we're learning as we go, and so we're very intentionally selecting a ram each time that will just continue to breed even better genetics into our flock over time. And so we were super happy with him, and we would definitely buy from that farm again. And our hope is that we can get to the point where we can say the same thing about our flock, is that they have the same traits that he possesses. So that's it. This is where we're at 1 month after lambing, and some lessons that we've learned. That's Freckle. She's one of the little babies. So cute with the little brown spots on her. It's so funny to see so many white babies out of so many colored moms. Genetics are definitely interesting what passes on. And the interesting thing is that all these moms that all have all the dark coloring, almost all their moms were white like these ones. Like, so they're passing on like the grandmother's genetics, the one that came before then. Doing a good job, Buster. Doing a good job. We're very pleased with you. So he's Katahdin, Florida Cracker. And I'll double check the name of the farm, but I'm pretty sure the woman that I dealt with, her name was Jen, and she's from Maplewood Acres in Missouri. Very, very, very pleasant to deal with. If I got that name wrong, I'll correct it in the next video. So, have a great day.